Hello and welcome to the blocks and assembly drawing techniques lesson. As you see on the topic sheet, we've got two main topics, and really the biggest one is topic number one, which is blocks. So in this session, we're going to learn how to create, insert, and edit blocks, and then create a block that's usable in any drawing, and then see how we can best utilize the management of blocks. And AutoCAD gives us a few ways of doing that through the Design Center and the Tool Palette, okay? And then some other smaller items. Then topic two, which is small by comparison to topic one, there's some ways we can further increase our productivity by splitting our screen up into multiple views of the drawing. All right, so let's jump on in. So blocks are probably one of the most valuable things that AutoCAD has to offer in terms of making our lives easier and faster and more productive. What blocks enable us to do is to draw a symbol and store that symbol so that each time we need to use that symbol, we recall it from a library. And the benefit to that is that you have consistency, right? And all users on your network should be able to have access to that same symbol and then insert that. All right, so there's many benefits of blocks. For example, like I just said, they can be inserted as many times as needed. They can be rescaled to any size at the time that you insert it. When you call it from a library and insert it, it can be rescaled. It can be rotated as well. It's not as big of an issue nowadays with, faster computers that have good storage, but blocks actually save drawing size. And blocks can be inserted from drawing to drawing, and they can consist of all colors and line types, and will retain those colors and line types, regardless of the layer that they are inserted upon. There's one little exception to that, and we'll see. Okay, so I'm going to switch this over. This is a page right out of the book, and if you have your book, it's page 731. What I want to show you first in this upper half here is here's a miscellaneous collection of symbols that could be good candidates for blocks. And as you can see, the blue square represents the grip or the point when you call it from a library. It'll be connected to your crosshair by that point. Okay? It's called the insertion point. And that insertion point is typically a point that you would think about that would be beneficial to snapping to something. Okay? So I want to give that some thought. And as you can see, the first collection is some typical architectural blocks, some electronic symbol blocks, and mechanical blocks. And you can have, many, many blocks. The more blocks you have, the faster it is. And this lesson is called Blocks and Assemblies because you'll see that once you have a mature or a wide-reaching block library, your drawings are taking on a different way of creating them. You're assembling them, right? You're taking pieces of it and assembling it for the overall item. And the more blocks you have, the better that process is and the faster it goes. Okay, so just to give you an idea of some symbols and typical insertion points. All right, looking at the bottom half here, when we have to create a block, this is the dialogue that we have to interact with. And although there's a lot of things on here, really the only things at a minimum we need to do is give it a name. Block has to have a name. And we have to select an insertion point. And if you don't, it defaults to 0, 0. So while technically you could avoid even clicking any of that, you might have this thing drawing way out in space, but without specifically defining where that blue grip is going to be or that insertion point is going to be, it will default to 0, 0, which could be way off in the distance, and that would be not a good thing. And then we have to select the block, right? So we would window in the block to say, hey, this is what I want to become the symbol. The rest of this stuff is kind of accessories. I'm going to go over, all of this when we get to it, but at a minimum, those three things are essential. Now, when it comes to a block name, it will accept a space in the name, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's not a good thing to put a space. For reasons that are a little down the road that are not of immediate concern, but trust me, avoid putting a space if you can. You would fill in the space with a dash or an underscore. And if you look at the bottom of this page, you can see that it says the block name cannot exceed 255 characters. Well, that's insane to even go up so close to that. So you want to keep it short and sweet, like a layer name, right? Try to define what it is and keep it short and sweet. It can contain numbers, letters, spaces, dollar sign, and hyphen, and underscore. All right. So it can have a space, but we don't want to put a space in there. Okay. It's just for down the road when you get into customization and you can create your own button that at the click of a button it can insert a block. If that block name has a space in it, you can't do that. And you don't want to create problems downstream. Okay? So instead of a space, a dash, which is a hyphen or an underscore. All right, with that said, let's jump on into a drawing. Now, you have to open up this drawing, and this is on Web Campus, and it's called Class Exercise Blocks Drawing. So you need to open up that drawing because there's some things in here that I need you to begin with. I don't want to have to spend the time to create this. All right, so in this drawing, I've already created this for you, and I've used these layers. Okay, so the layer center line is obviously your center line. The layer hidden is the outer circle, and the layer object is the inner circle. I did not use layer 0, nor should you. And then there's a reason for that, which I'm going to come back to. Okay? So make sure that if you were, playing around with this drawing, make sure that you are on layer object to begin with, not layer 0. And again, I'll get back to why we need to do this. Because it's white and continuous, so why not use 0? Well, there's a reason. Okay, so let's say that this object is a good candidate for a block. Now, what is this? Why would I use this as a block? For the mechanical people, this is a good example for a block. This would represent a hole, and a hole that has threads in it. So on a machine part, typically you need some threads, threaded holes, and that's what it would look like looking down at it. The outer hidden line represents the helical thread. Okay, so this would be a great example for a thread. Now, just so that we have some sense of size here, if I click the diameter command, it is 1 inch in diameter, which is big, right? If you're making small machine parts, 1 inch diameter is gigantic. But it's good that you drew this out, that we drew this at 1 inch for a reason we're going to see in a little bit. That will work to our advantage. Even if we never even use a 1 inch diameter, we're going to start it out with 1 inch. All right, so I've done the setup work for us, but obviously to create a block, you have to first draw your object, and that's what I've done for us. So the steps for creating a block, I would write these things down because you're going to have an assignment where you're going to need to make several blocks. So again, once you have the geometry drawn, to create a block, the first thing you do, and this is a new area in the ribbon, we have a whole panel just for blocks. We're going to click the Create button, right up here, Create. So select Create, and that dialog that I just showed you from the book is going to open up, right? Block definition. Okay, now, like I said before, we want to give this thing a name, and the name should be short and sweet and to the point. So this is a threaded hole, so let's call it that. So I'm going to call it threaded dash. I'm not going to put a space, hole. Okay, so there's my name. Now, I need to define where on this shape that I want it to be connected to my cursor when I insert it so that I can snap to something or have it to my advantage. So that's going to be done with the pick point button under base point. Okay? So in the base point category, we're going to select the pick point button. So go ahead and click that. And obviously on a circle, say to yourself, what's a logical point? And I hope you're saying to yourself, oh, obviously the midpoint. Okay? So let's snap to the midpoint or the center of the circle. Okay? Click right there. As soon as you click, it brings you right back to the dialog box. And observe for no useful reason at all, it gives us this crazy number, I don't know, with a million decimal places, that only tells us the exact point where I've just clicked. Okay? Other than that, it serves no purpose. So really, you can ignore that, although it seems like they put a lot of energy into that number. All right, so where are we at? We gave it a name. Remember, there's three things. We gave it a name, we gave it an insertion point or base point, and now I need to select this, right? So that is the Select Objects button right here. So I'm going to pick this button, and I'm going to simply window in my block. Okay, so I window this in, and I press Enter. When I press Enter, it brings me back into the dialog, shows me a little thumbnail picture of it, and you will never see line styles in here, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it's a limitation or something, but it's always been that way, so don't be rattled that you don't truly see center line or hidden lines, but it'll be drawn properly when we insert it. Okay, so now we've done the minimum three things: name, pick point, and select objects. So before we exit this dialog, I just want to give us a little tour for the rest of the items in here. All right, so starting with the middle objects category, we have three options: retain, convert to block, and delete. It's on convert to block because when we pick OK, this item will no longer be two circles and a center mark. It'll be now a block. It'll be seen as one object. Okay? And that's typically what you want. If I put it on retain and I pick OK, well, this will remain as two circles and a center mark, but it will have created a block from this, and it'll be in the symbol library. Okay? And if I have it on delete, when I pick OK, it'll erase or get rid of this, but a block from this will have been created and will be in the library. Okay, so typically you want it on convert to block, but you have those other two options. All right, behavior, annotative. Okay, annotative, that's what we learned last week, and if you recall, what does annotative mean? That AutoCAD automatically controls the size or scale of the object based upon your model space scale, which you can't quite see on my screen, or maybe you can. Let's see if I can't, yeah, good. All right, so right now it's 1-to-1, so that block would remain its 1-to-1 size. If I click annotative and I change that to 2-to-1, when I go to insert that, it's going to be twice the size. So your scaling is controlled by this number, and that's hopefully the message that you comprehended from last week's assignment. Okay. We can have it always scale uniformly. I don't advise that because there are times you're going to not want to scale it uniformly. And you just have to trust me on that for the moment. But it will enable you to scale it along the x-axis differently than the y-axis without clicking it. Okay? And then allow exploding. Now, allow exploding is something that you want, and because you never know, you might need to break it up and then make some modifications. It's best to leave that checked. Okay? So as a general rule of thumb with AutoCAD, if you haven't figured it out by now, generally what the things are set to is the most common choice, and you really need to have a reason to change that. So we're leaving all this stuff be. The description. Now remember, in the name of it, you have to be a little careful with what you type in. I would love to have put in 1-inch diameter hole, but the inch marks are not allowed in a block name. So in the description, I could type in anything I want, and I'm going to do that. So I'm going to type in 1-inch mark, DIA, period, hole. All right, and that'll accept anything. Okay, so if you have to be more specific with special characters, there's the place you're going to do it. Unit setting, block unit. You've seen this list before. I'm going to click on here, and you've got that same list that you would see in the system units. And my strong advice in both cases, don't touch this. You don't need to mess with this. I've done a million drawings, and I don't think I've ever needed to change this. But the theory is, if you're going to bring this, let's say send this overseas where they have different units, they can change that to insert the block, and it'll automatically change its proportions to the units, for example, metric or whatever, one of those other ones that they were using. So your best choice is leave it as inches and just leave it be. And then hyperlink, that's another good one. You can link your block to any electronic medium. For example, if I want to link that to a PDF file, which is going to give me a description. Now, it's a threaded hole, which doesn't make sense, but let's say I had a block that I'm representing as, let's say, a rooftop air conditioner. Well, I could link that to a PDF, which gives me maintenance, or it gives me the manual, the service manual. It gives me perhaps repair places and contact information. You know, anything you want, like a PDF file, a Word file, or an Excel, and on and on. Or a website. Maybe you want to link it to a website that manufactures that particular object. Okay? So that's just, another capability that you can enhance a block with. And when you do link it to something, after you're done, when you roll your mouse over it, you'll get that little link symbol to say, hey, there's something linked to this, and then you'd right-click and follow the prompts. All right, so I'm not doing anything other than what we did, the three minimum: name, pick point, select objects, and now let's finally click OK. Okay, so we're back in the drawing. Nothing looks any different other than if you hover your mouse on top of this, it all lights up, and it now tells me it's a block. So if I click on it, it's only seen as one object, and that square blue grip tells me where I chose as the insertion point, or the base point. Okay, so I'll move off of it and hit escape. So there's our first example of creating a block, right? It's not terribly hard. There's only a few steps, but you want to get those steps correct. All right, so now, theoretically, forevermore in this drawing, I could insert this symbol, and I know it's going to come out exactly the same. So let's give that a shot. So the next thing we're going to do is insert the block. So in that same block panel, instead of create, now select insert. When you pick insert, it opens up what's formerly called a gallery, and there's only, gallery of one right now, but to insert this, simply click anywhere on its picture, and then bring your mouse into the drawing, and there it is, connected to your cursor, and all you have to do is click. Okay, and there we go. Okay, so now let's see some of the advantages of this. More advantages, I should say, because that's a biggie right there. Now I've always got that symbol ready to go, and I know what I'm going to get. All right, so let's say I'm going to go back to insert, only this time I want to select our recent blocks. Okay, and that should open up a palette. I'm going to give it a second to open that up. And what I'm going to do is close my layer palette. We're done with that. And I'm going to drag this palette up in here. And you can see in my screen, I've got a busy screen. You may not have anything going on in yours. And even though I said recent blocks, click on which may already be selected, click on current drawing. Okay? Now, when you're inserting blocks, it is often recommended to have this palette out and maybe off to the side. I don't want this to dock, so to get it to not dock, with my mouse on the title bar, I'm going to right-click and uncheck this Allow Docking. That way I can snug this right up to my Properties palette without it wanting to dock. Now, here's the beauty of this. I want to insert this, and I want to insert this at a different scale. For example, a half scale. So I'm going to highlight in the X, I'm going to say 0.5, and I'm going to highlight in here and say 0.5. Okay. Now, when I insert this, I just select it off of here, and I bring my mouse in the drawing, and there it is, at a scale of half scale, 0.5. And notice it stays that way until you're done. But let's see, we'll put this to the test. What if I pick this one up here again? Will it be still this one, or will it be back to the 1-to-1? Well, let's try it. Okay, back to the 1-to-1. Back to the 1=1 scale. So if you think about it, I have two varieties of that I could easily grab from, which is neat. All right, so I can get my original one from here or my modified one from here. Now, another option we can do here, which is neat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click these little buttons here. This is like a preset. I'm going to click that. Notice what was to the right of it disappeared, so let me uncheck that. So I can fix an angle, or I could say, ask me at the time I insert it by clicking these boxes here. Okay, so I could have said, I don't want this to be locked in here. I want it to always ask me to change its scale at the time of insertion. Okay, so we'll do that for rotate, and we'll see the behavior. All right, so now I'm going to go back and let's say I want to go back to my 1 equals 1. So I'm going to pick this, I'm going to click this, and now I'm going to click, let's say I want it to be here. All right, but notice it didn't ask me to rotate. I always have to click it from here, and then that means I'm going to go back to my 1/2 inch scale. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this back to 1. Here, we'll get a good variation of different things here. And I don't want it to ask me scale yet. Okay, so I'm resetting them to 1, and I'm going to click on here, and now I'm going to bring this in and click, but you'll see I'm not done. I'm going to move my mouse around, and I can click the scale in, or you look down at your command prompt, it's asking you to type in the rotation angle. Now, if your polar angle agrees with what you want, and it could be 30, 45, or what have you, you could just drag it and click, which is what I'm going to do. So mine's at 45, if yours is at 30, that's okay. And I'm going to click. Okay, so if you think of all of this together, I can both scale and rotate at the exact same time. Kind of neat, right? So it's really combining 3 commands. It's combining the insertion of a block, it's combining scaling and rotating in one shot. So you can see how that really saves you time. All right, let's try another one at a larger scale. So this time I'm going to click where I want it to ask me the scale factor, and I don't want it to ask me for rotation. So now I'm going to click in here, and let's say I'm going to put this one a little bit off to the side and click, and now at the command prompt it's asking me to enter the X scale factor. So I'm going to say 2, I typed in 2, enter, and it also asks me Y scale factor. Remember, you can non-uniformly scale it. So I want to show you that as well. So I'm going to set my Y scale factor to 1. I want to leave it at 1, and then enter. And you can see that it's 2 to 1 in the X, and 1 to 1 in the Y. Okay, so if that were on a sloped surface, remember the auxiliary views, and in the top view, it might have been in a angle, and it would not have looked round. It would have looked elliptical or oval. Well, if you had a block that looked like that, you can now change the scale factor so you don't have to redraw that from scratch. Okay, so getting back to the big benefit, why did we draw this at 1 inch diameter? Well, the answer to that is because now when you insert this, right, and let's say I need one that's at 3/4 diameter. Well, I can click on this and say 0.75, enter, and then 0.75 for the Y, enter, and now I've got my 3/4 inch diameter thread. Okay, so if I don't like typing that in a lot, I could uncheck this and type in 0.75, and then click that, so it'll automatically come in at 0.75. But then it's going to stay at 0.75. So if you have multiple diameters, you're going to want to leave this at 1 to 1 and just click on the scale so that at the time that you're inserting it, you can change its scale. Okay, so there is the basics of inserting a block. Okay, we can rotate it, we can scale it. Okay. All right, so let's think about what's coming next. So after we insert the block, the next thing you're going to want to think about is editing it. And editing it can come in the form of several things. So to edit this, I want you to do the following. I want you to pan this drawing up to the upper left corner of your screen, and then let's insert one more. So I'm going to pick insert, and this one is the default one, right, where we didn't alter it in any way. And I'm just going to click off to the side here. This is going to be our guinea pig block. Okay, so I've inserted a new one that's unaltered, 1 to 1 scale, not rotated. And let's say, for example, we realize after we put all of those blocks at various scales and the one was rotated, that I forgot to have something in this block. So I need to add to that. Well, to do that, we're now moving into the editing section of the class. And that's going to be with and explode. There's a couple of ways to edit, but the primal way is to explode it. Okay, so to explode, I'm going to go up to my explode button right here. And I'm going to select explode, and I'm going to select the block and press enter. Now, it doesn't look any different, but if I hover my mouse on it, it's now back to 2 circles and a center mark. Okay? So it's no longer a block. Now, in order for me to add something to this, I need to explode it, make my change, and then redefine this block the same way that I did to begin with. Okay? So, now we're going to involve the whole layer 0 thing. You know, we're going to answer the question, why did we avoid layer 0 and why is this even an issue? Okay? So, I exploded this object. I'm now going to change to layer 0, which I want you to do. Okay? So, set layer 0 as current. Now go to the rectangle command, the AutoCAD rectangle command, and we're just going to draw a rectangle. Let's say this was our addition. No rhyme or reason. Don't be crazy about positioning that. So let's say that's what our block was supposed to look like, and we forgot that and all the others. So now I've exploded the block. I switched to layer 0, and I added my additional feature. Now let's go back to layer object. Right? Now, what I want to do is redefine this block. I have to go back through the steps that I did when I created it. So I have to go back to the Create button. So in your block panel, I'm selecting Create, and up comes my Create dialog. Okay? Now in here, I want to type the name of it, but I'm going to put the brakes on right there. I don't have to type the name of it because it's there. I just have to find it in the list, big list of 1, right? And the reason you don't want to type it is because what if you accidentally misspell it or give it a different name? Now you have 2 different blocks, which in some cases is a good thing, but now no. So go ahead and select threaded hole, okay? And select the pick point button. Now, big warning here, make sure you use the same insertion point as we did last time, which is to the center of the circle. So select the pick point, and then bring your mouse over and snap to, it's either going to be the center mark or the midpoint. I'm clicking that, okay? And then I have to go to Select Objects, right? The Select Objects button. And then window in the whole thing, which includes your, that new rectangle, and press Enter. Okay, so that Enter brings us back to the block definition dialog. We can see our thumbnail now includes our new feature, okay? And what I want you to do is to simply approve this by clicking OK, and you're going to get a new dialog. And that dialog says, hey, wait a minute, threaded hole is already defined as a block. Would you like to redefine it? Or, no, don't redefine it. Well, we're doing this because, yes, we want to redefine it. So pick Redefine Block. Okay, and look what happened. All of the other blocks now get this rectangle placed in it. It acquires that change. Why? Because blocks are what's called associative, just like dimensions. Once they're on the drawing, if you change something in the style, then that style is forwarded to all of the other dimensions. And the same goes with blocks. And that makes this another valuable reason to use blocks, because you can always modify all of them. Now, getting back to the name of the block, let's say I wanted all of the ones that were on there not to have this. I just wanted a new one with this rectangle. Well, then I would have given it a different name. So I would have left the original threaded hole alone and just created a new one. So that's also, sometimes you'll need to do that. Okay, but the point at hand here is we edited this by exploding it and then redefining adding our change and then redefining the block as the same name. And so that's basically the steps. Now, I mentioned that there's a number of ways to editing this, and I want to show you another way. And I like this other way because there's less work involved. You can't always use this other way, and I'll tell you why at the time it makes sense. But the majority of the times you'll be able to use this. So for that reason, I think you're going to like this. And and I'm going to switch back to here, this is the in-place edit. and it's also known as ref edit, but it's the in-place edit method. And again, this is a better way of modifying blocks. Okay, so let's say, we don't want this rectangle there. We want to get rid of that. So once again, I need to get in there and edit it. All right, I almost passed over another important thing here. So put the editing that with the ref edit on hold a second. I didn't show you about layer 0. Oops, almost forgot. Okay, so what's the deal with layer 0? All right, when we edited this rectangle we created in layer 0, but all the others are in their respective layers. So I want to show you what happens with layer 0. So right now, switch your current layer to layer hidden. Okay? Once we've switched it to layers hidden, select insert and click on your threaded hole and bring that in and drop it down right next to our guinea pig block. And without making any comments, go up and change to layer center and insert one more version of the threaded hole next to the last one. All right, and now that you've added those two, let's now comment on what happened. Okay, the rectangle was drawn in layer 0. And what happened when I switched to a different layer, what was drawn in layer 0 became my current layer. Okay, so when I was in layer hidden, the rectangle was then drawn in hidden lines. When I was in layer center, the rectangle was drawn with center lines. Now you don't see the center lines. Why? Hopefully in your head you're saying, well, obviously because of the LT scale needs to be reduced. All right, so I'm going to do that. LT scale, enter, and I'm going to set it to 0.5. Okay, and now you can see that the green rectangle is truly center line. Okay, so here's the moral of the story. Anything you draw in layer 0 that is part of a block will become the layer that you inserted upon. Now, that can be bad, it can be good, right? If you want that feature, that's good. You know, the big thing is you need to know that feature and use it to your advantage. When you don't want it, obviously it's bad. What if I didn't want this to be hidden and I didn't want this to be center? Well, it's an easy fix, right? Think of it. It'll become the layer you're on when you insert it. So if I just do a cross window through this, and then I switch my current layer back to either object or 0, it's going to turn white. I'm going to put it on object. Okay? So if it happens when you don't want it to happen, just click the block and put it back in 0 or another layer that is, the color you intended it to be. Okay, so it's not the worst thing, but again, if you didn't know this existed, this would happen to you and you'd be like, what the heck? Why did that happen? It's layer 0 becomes the layer that you're on when it's part of a block and you insert it. All right, back to the second method of editing, the ref edit or in-place edit. Okay, now I want to get rid of these rectangles without exploding it because that's disruptive. I have to do a lot of work. So what I'm going to do is select the block and I'm going to right click. And let me just say, don't select this block, right? Don't select this block, this block. Why? Because they've all been altered from their original size. And when you redefine it, that's the new normal and everything else goes out of whack, right? So always select your original, unaltered block. Okay, so we select that block and then right click. And at the top of the stack in this right click menu or near the top, you see edit block in place. That's otherwise known as ref edit, R-E-F-E-D-I-T. So edit block in place. Select that. Okay. And you're going to see this dialog. All you really have to do here is pick OK. And you don't have to change anything. Just pick OK. And what's nice about this too is that it puts the spotlight on, what should be highlighted because this is what I want to change. So let's kind of, tone down everything else. So what is it I want to do here? Well, I have access to all my commands. I could create a new layer and draw stuff and add text and do whatever it is I need to do. I am in this somewhat suspended state of editing right now. Now, you probably didn't notice, but look up here. You have a new panel that shows up to indicate you're in this edit reference state. You wouldn't even be able to save your drawing right now. Okay? We've got to say either save these changes to this block or cancel, discard these changes. But we can't do anything beyond that. And sometimes, you get a phone call and you forget what you were doing and you're like, hey, why can't I save my drawing? And you may not realize you're in this edit state. Okay, so we want to get rid of the rectangle. So let's click on the rectangle and hit delete. Okay? And for us now, that's all I want to do. So to acknowledge that, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to simply pick Save Changes. And this is because we're saving. It's one of these, you're sure you know what you're doing dialogues. Say OK. And we're back in business. Okay, so to me that is much easier. Right? All I have to do is erase or add and then OK. I don't have to redefine the block and make sure I click the same insertion point and make sure I spelled it right or click the same one in the list. And there's a lot of opportunity to make a mistake or have a problem in the explode version of that. Okay? The only thing about that is remembering that it exists, right? Because there's an explode button always right there in erase, but this, you have to click, and you have to right-click, and you have to go to Edit Block in Place. Okay, so remembering it exists and where it is half the battle. All right, I just hit Escape. Okay, so the next phase of this, after we've gone through a couple of editing examples, is the next command on the list that we're going to talk about is called WBlock, right? Which is write block, right? As in saving to disk, WRITE. And this is valuable, okay? So with a write block, right now, although this is a great feature, we can insert as many of these as we want. If I were to now open up another drawing, this block is not in that drawing, okay? So that's a problem. Or let's say I'm here at the office and I go home on my laptop, not going to have the block, unless I copy the drawing, obviously. But the point here is I want to make this block universal. I want to make it available in any drawing. And if I'm on a network with other users in my office, I want them to have access to it. I can't do that in its current state. So I need to literally save this block to hard drive, okay? And that's called a write block. Where we get the write block is in your ribbon, you have an Insert tab. I don't know that we've been there yet, but select Insert, okay, way up in the corner here. And we've got another couple of panels that are devoted to just blocks. So what we have to do is not select the Create Block button in the top half, but select the word Create Block in the bottom half. And then you'll see the write block. That's another thing is, where is that button? Okay? So because it's so hidden away, what I usually do is I just type in the letter W. Right? You just hit W, enter. It's going to bring us to this dialog, which is what we would get if I literally click write block. Okay? So it's your call, either W, enter, or you have to remember where it is, insert, and then select the word write block, and then write block. All right, so this is the interface in which we would save the threaded hole block to its own file. It's not this drawing, it's only the block itself. So because we're doing that in the source category, we simply click block, all right, and then that grays out this whole center part. Theoretically, in this dialog, we could create the block and the W block in one shot, but it's highly recommended not to because you want to test it out first. Make sure it works, you can insert it before you create bigger trouble. By now I've got it in my drawing, I've got it on hard drive, and they're both wrong. Okay? So create the block first, then go to the W box, select this block option here. Now I have to pick it from the list. Okay? So first thing I do is pick block. Second thing I do is select the block here. And then the third thing I do is say, hey, where do I want to save this to? Okay? And the default location is usually somewhere way deep in your computer. What I'm going to do is go to the little triple dot to open up a browse window, and I'm going to go select where I usually save everything. For me, it's on my D drive. Okay, so I'm keeping everything in here, and although I could change the name, don't change the name. Now you've got a block name that's different than the W block name, and you're going to be going crazy. All right, so leave the name the same. Select save. All right, so I browse to where I want to save it. Excuse me. Now I'm going to click save. And that didn't save it yet. That just said where it's going to save. So the last thing I'm going to do here is pick OK. And be careful. When you pick OK, this happens so quickly, but somewhere over about here, it's going to happen in the blink of an eye. You're going to see a little dialogue that shows you the bigger picture of your block. But if you blink, you miss it. All right, so I'm going to pick OK, looking in the upper left. All right, it happens so quick. All right, but that's what literally saved this now to my hard drive. So if I open up a File Explorer window, drag this in here, and I go searching in the same folder. Okay, there it is, threaded hole. Okay, so now I have this on my hard drive, and what I should probably do is put this on the server if I'm in an office with multiple, people on workstations, and that way everybody can see it and use it, and then everybody is consistent. Everybody's going to get the same thing. So standardization is a big thing, right? You don't want worker A having their version of a threaded hole, and you have your version, and then nobody has the same thing, and it's just not a good thing. The opposite of standard. Right? Okay, so now watch this. So I'm going to open up a new drawing file, and I'm just going to pick on the plus sign here. So I'm going to pick plus. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I want to show you in my layers, right? There's nothing in here, just layer 0. There typically wouldn't be anything in a new drawing. Well, what I'm going to do now is go to Insert, okay? And I'm going to select Blocks from Other Drawings. Okay, blocks from other drawings, and that opens up a browse window. So now I got to go find it. So I'm going to go to D. For me, it's this. So you have to go find where you saved yours. And there it is, threaded hole. Okay, and I'm going to pick Open. So now it's in my drawing, right? And it's in my drawing because I now see it right here. So now to use this, all I have to do is click here. And now remember, when you start a new drawing, you're zoomed out farther, right? We usually start with a zoom all. So I'm just going to zoom a little closer to see that. So there it is. And the other thing is it brings in the layers with it, which is kind of neat. So maybe you need to create a new drawing, and you have to create those layers, and you're like, you know what, I'm not going to create them. I'm just going to insert the block, and then I'm going to delete the block, right? And I still have my layers. And it saved me time of creating those layers. Okay? So a little shortcut there. But we still have our block in the drawing, and now, in this new drawing forevermore, it's right there. Okay, so that is the process of a W block, and it's really saving the block to your hard drive, making that block available to any new drawing. All right, let's go back to the first drawing we were in, the class exercise block drawing. Hey, the next thing I want to show us, okay, let's make sure I'm staying on target here. The next thing I'm going to show us is the design center. Okay? And what I think I'm going to do, because we're running near the 45-minute mark in this lesson, and the lesson file gets to be really big and unwieldy, what I'm going to do is end the recording here, and when we pick it up, we're going to pick it up from right here, Design Center. So just stay put and launch the second file, and we'll pick it up from Design Center. Okay? So see you in the next video.